They say that a lion never loses his roar. But what happens when the king of the jungle starts to whisper? What happens when the fire that once burned bright in a man's chest begins to flicker like a dying candle in the wind? I'm Dr. Ricardo, and for over 25 years, I've dedicated my practice to helping men navigate the most challenging chapter of their lives, the years after when everything they thought they knew about their bodies suddenly changes. Here on Life After 65, I've witnessed thousands of men face a truth that society refuses to acknowledge. The silent erosion of masculine vitality that strikes when we least expect it. But here's what most men don't realize: what their doctors won't tell them, and what the pharmaceutical industry desperately wants to keep hidden. The loss of virility, energy, and sexual confidence after 60 isn't inevitable. It's not a life sentence. And most importantly, it's not happening because you're too old. The real culprit, it's something far more insidious and far more fixable than age itself. Picture this. Every morning, millions of men over 60 wake up and avoid looking in the mirror. Not because of wrinkles or gray hair, but because they can't recognize the man staring back at them. The spark in his eyes has dimmed. The confidence in his posture has set. The energy that once carried him through challenging days has evaporated like morning mist. And in the most private moments, when he's alone with his thoughts or with his partner, he feels like a stranger in his own body. The desire is still there, buried deep, but his body won't respond the way it used to. The mind says yes, but everything else says no. This isn't just about sex. This is about identity. This is about feeling like the man you've always been, the man you've earned the right to be after decades of life, work, and experience. If you're watching this video, chances are you've felt this too. Maybe it started gradually, a little less energy here, a little less confidence there. Maybe it hit you suddenly, like a wake-up call you weren't prepared for. Either way, you're not alone, and you're definitely not broken. First, CTA. Before we dive deeper into what's really happening to your body and what you can do about it, I want to hear from you. Comment below which city or country you're watching from. Like this video if it's resonating with you. And subscribe to Life After 65 so you don't miss what's coming next. We're building a community of men who refuse to accept decline as inevitable, and your voice matters in this conversation. Now, let me share something that might shock you. Last month, I had a consultation with a 67-year-old retired engineer named Michael. He came to my office with his head down, speaking barely above a whisper. His wife had sent him, he said, because she was worried about his depression. But Michael wasn't depressed. Michael was grieving the loss of his masculine identity. For 3 years, he'd been experiencing what he called the fade. His energy levels had plummeted. His motivation to tackle projects around the house had vanished. His interest in intimacy with his wife had become almost non-existent, not because he didn't love her, but because he felt ashamed of what his body had become. "Doctor," he told me, "I feel like I'm disappearing, piece by piece. I'm still here, but I'm not really here." You know, I knew exactly what he meant, because I'd heard those exact words from hundreds of men just like him. Men who'd built careers, raised families, overcome challenges, and conquered their fair share of mountains, now feeling defeated by their own biology. But here's the part of Michael's story that matters most. 6 months later, he called me with news that changed everything. Not only had his energy returned, but his wife had noticed such a dramatic change in his vitality and confidence that she jokingly asked if he'd found the fountain of youth. What happened to Michael wasn't magic, it wasn't expensive, and it definitely wasn't a prescription drug with a list of side effects longer than a grocery receipt. It was something much simpler, much more natural, and much more powerful than anything the medical establishment wants you to believe is possible. Here's the uncomfortable truth that the medical industry would prefer you never discover. Most of what's happening to your body after 60 isn't caused by aging itself. It's caused by 3 specific deficiencies that compound over time, creating what I call the perfect storm of masculine decline. These 3 deficiencies are so interconnected that fixing just 1 or 2 won't give you the results you're looking for. But when you address all 3 simultaneously, something remarkable happens. Your body doesn't just recover. It transforms. Let me explain what I mean by sharing another story that will probably sound familiar. 2 years ago, I met Carlos, a 63-year-old former firefighter who'd spent 35 years running into burning buildings to save lives. If anyone understood what real strength looked like, it was Carlos. But by the time he walked into my clinic, this man who'd once carried unconscious adults down 3 flights of stairs was struggling to carry groceries from his car to his house without feeling exhausted. "Doc," he said, "I've been strong my whole life. Physical strength, mental strength, you name it. But now I feel like I'm operating on 20% battery, and I can't find the charger." Carlos had visited 3 different doctors over the past year. The first one ran some basic blood tests and declared everything normal for your age. The second prescribed testosterone therapy that gave him energy for a few weeks, but left him feeling anxious and unable to sleep. The third suggested he might be dealing with normal aging, and recommended he adjust his expectations. But I knew better. After examining Carlos and running some specialized tests that most doctors never think to order, I discovered he was dealing with all 3 pillars of masculine decline simultaneously. His body was essentially running on empty in 3 crucial areas, and until we addressed all 3, no single solution was going to work. The first pillar is what I call circulation stagnation. Most men over 60 have no idea that their blood isn't flowing the way it used to, not just to their extremities, but to the organs and tissues that matter most for masculine vitality. When circulation becomes sluggish, everything else follows suit. Energy drops, mental clarity fades, and sexual function becomes a frustrating reminder of what used to work effortlessly. The second pillar is hormonal chaos. This goes far beyond just testosterone levels. Your body produces dozens of hormones that work together like a finely tuned orchestra. When one section falls out of tune, the entire symphony sounds off. Most doctors only test for a few basic hormones and miss the complex interplay that determines how masculine and vital you feel. The third pillar, and this is the one that surprised me the most when I first discovered it, is what I call cellular energy bankruptcy. Your cells, particularly in the organs responsible for masculine function, start producing energy less efficiently. It's like having a sports car with a failing engine. The potential is still there, but the power just isn't being generated anymore. Here's where it gets interesting. These 3 pillars don't exist in isolation. They feed off each other in a downward spiral. Poor circulation affects hormone production. Hormonal imbalance impacts cellular energy. Decreased cellular energy makes circulation even worse. And around it goes, year after year, until you barely recognize the man you used to be. But, and this is crucial, the spiral can be reversed. When I explained this to Carlos, I watched his posture change. For the first time in years, he wasn't hearing about adjusting expectations or accepting limitations. He was hearing about a path back to vitality that made sense to his engineer's brain and his firefighter's heart. 6 months later, Carlos sent me a text message that I've kept on my phone ever since. "Doc, yesterday I chopped firewood for 3 hours straight, then took my wife dancing. I feel like I'm 45 again, but with the wisdom of 63. Whatever this is, it's working." The solution I gave Carlos wasn't a single pill or a single lifestyle change. It was a systematic approach to rebuilding all 3 pillars simultaneously. And the best part, it didn't require expensive treatments, risky procedures, or synthetic hormones with concerning side effects. It required 3 specific natural interventions that most men can implement starting today. These interventions work with your body's existing systems, not against them. They restore function rather than mask symptoms. And they address the root cause of masculine decline rather than just treating the surface level problems. But before I reveal what these interventions are, I need to share something that might surprise you about the current state of men's health in America. Because what's happening to you isn't happening in isolation. It's part of a much larger crisis that's affecting millions of men. And understanding this context will help you realize that taking action isn't just important for you personally. It's important for every man who refuses to accept decline as inevitable. What I'm about to share with you isn't taught in medical school, isn't discussed in mainstream health circles, and definitely isn't something the pharmaceutical industry wants you to understand. But it explains why millions of men over 60 are experiencing identical symptoms despite living completely different lifestyles. There's an epidemic happening right under our noses, and it's not what you think. It's not heart disease. though that's certainly a concern. It's not diabetes, though that affects millions. It's not even the obvious culprits like stress or poor diet, though those play supporting roles. The real epidemic is what I call nutritional masculine deficiency. The systematic depletion of 3 specific nutrients that your body absolutely requires to maintain masculine vitality: energy and sexual function. These nutrients are so crucial that even minor deficiencies can trigger the cascade of symptoms that most men assume are just part of getting older. Here's the shocking part. These deficiencies are largely preventable and almost always reversible, but because they develop slowly over decades, and because their symptoms overlap with what doctors expect to see in older men, they go undiagnosed and untreated in roughly 85% of cases. Let me paint you a picture of how this works in real life. Last year, I had a consultation with Robert, a 65-year-old retired bank president. Robert had built a career on making smart decisions under pressure. He was analytical, methodical, and didn't believe in quick fixes or miracle cures. When his wife convinced him to see me, he made it clear that he was skeptical about alternative approaches to health. Doctor said, "I've been to Mayo Clinic. I've had every test you can imagine. Everything comes back normal. But I feel like I'm running on empty, and no one can tell me why." Robert's symptoms were textbook: gradual energy decline over 18 months, decreased morning arousal, difficulty maintaining erections, reduced motivation for activities he used to enjoy, and what he described as mental fog that made him feel less sharp than he'd been his entire career. His testosterone levels within normal range for his age. His cardiovascular health excellent. His blood sugar, cholesterol, blood pressure, all managed well with medication and lifestyle. So, what was the problem? When I ran the specialized nutrient panel that I use for all my male patients over 6, the answer became crystal clear. Robert was severely deficient in all 3 of the nutrients I call the masculine trinity. 3 compounds so essential for male vitality that even small deficiencies can derail everything else. The first deficiency was zinc, not just any zinc deficiency, but the specific type that affects the prostate, testosterone production, and cellular energy metabolism. Most doctors test for basic zinc levels in the blood, but that's like checking your bank account balance to determine your monthly spending habits. It doesn't tell you what's actually happening at the cellular level where zinc does its most important work. The second deficiency was something called diaspartic acid, an amino acid that most men have never heard of, but that plays a crucial role in stimulating the production of luteinizing hormone, the hormone that tells your body to make testosterone. When diaspartic acid levels drop, it's like removing the conductor from an orchestra. All the musicians are still there, but nobody's coordinating the performance. The third deficiency was the most surprising: nitric oxide precursors. These are the building blocks your body uses to create the molecule responsible for healthy blood flow, particularly to the organs involved in sexual function. Without adequate nitric oxide, it doesn't matter how healthy your heart is or how normal your hormone levels appear. The blood simply isn't getting where it needs to go when it needs to get there. Here's what made Robert's case so interesting. He was eating what most people would consider a healthy diet: lean proteins, vegetables, whole grains, minimal processed food. He was taking a standard multivitamin. He was exercising regularly. On paper, he was doing everything right, but he was still becoming deficient in these 3 crucial nutrients because of something that affects virtually every man over 60. Decreased absorption and increased demand. As we age, our digestive system becomes less efficient at extracting nutrients from food. At the same time, our bodies require higher amounts of these specific nutrients to maintain the same level of function. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a smaller cup, while the bucket keeps getting bigger holes in the bottom. The solution isn't just eating more of these nutrients, though that's part of it. The solution is understanding exactly which forms of these nutrients your body can actually use, when to take them for maximum absorption, and how to combine them so they work synergistically rather than competing with each other. When I explained this to Robert and gave him a specific protocol for addressing all 3 deficiencies simultaneously, he approached it the same way he'd approached everything else in his life: systematically and consistently. 90 days later, Robert walked into my office looking like a different man. His posture was straighter, his voice was stronger, his eyes had a clarity and intensity I hadn't seen during our first meeting, but most importantly, he felt like himself again. "Doc," he said, "I haven't just gotten my energy back. I feel like I've been upgraded. My wife says I'm more present, more engaged, more, alive than I've been in years. And frankly, our intimacy has reached levels I thought were behind us forever." This brings me to the first of the 3 interventions that can reverse masculine decline and restore the vitality you thought was gone forever. If I could give every man over 60 just one piece of advice that would have the most immediate impact on his energy, sexual function, and overall masculine vitality, it would be this. Understand your relationship with zinc, not the zinc you think you know, not the zinc in your basic multivitamin. I'm talking about bioavailable, properly absorbed, therapeutically dosed zinc that can actually reach the cells where it's needed most. Zinc is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in your body. But for men, its most critical functions revolve around testosterone production, prostate health, and cellular energy metabolism. When zinc levels drop, and they almost always drop after 60, everything else follows suit. But here's what most men don't realize. Not all zinc is created equal. The form of zinc matters enormously. The timing matters. What you take it with matters. And most importantly, what you don't take it with can make the difference between life-changing results and complete waste of money. Let me share a story that perfectly illustrates what I mean. 6 months ago, I met David, a 62-year-old former construction foreman who'd built half the commercial buildings in his city. David was a man's man, tough, practical, and skeptical of anything that sounded too good to be true. He came to see me because his wife had read one of my articles online and insisted he make an appointment. Dr. Hayes said, "I've been taking zinc supplements for 2 years. My doctor told me they might help with energy. I haven't noticed any difference whatsoever. My wife thinks you might know something he doesn't, but honestly, I think supplements are mostly snake oil." David's skepticism made perfect sense. He'd been taking 15 milligrams of zinc oxide daily, the most common form found in drugstore multivitamins and the least effective form for addressing masculine vitality issues. Zinc oxide has an absorption rate of roughly 10 to 15%. That means David was actually getting about 1.5 to 2 milligrams of usable zinc per day, barely enough to prevent severe deficiency, nowhere near enough to restore optimal function. But there's more to the story. David was taking his zinc supplement with his morning coffee and a piece of whole grain toast. The caffeine, calcium from the milk in his coffee, and fiber from the toast were all actively blocking zinc absorption. He might as well have been flushing his money down the toilet. When I explained this to David, I could see the wheels turning in his practical contractor's mind. "So you're telling me I've been using the wrong tool for the job, and I've been using it wrong to boot?" Exactly. I put David on a specific protocol using zinc first thing in the morning, at least 2 hours before any coffee or food. The dosage was higher than what he'd been taking, but still well within safe therapeutic ranges. But here's the key. I didn't just give him zinc, I gave him a specific combination of nutrients that work together to maximize zinc's effectiveness for masculine vitality. The first addition was copper. Zinc and copper work together in your body like dance partners. When one gets out of balance, the other suffers. Most men taking zinc supplements don't realize they need a small amount of copper to prevent deficiency and maintain the delicate balance these minerals require. The second addition was magnesium glycinate. Magnesium is involved in testosterone production and helps zinc get into the cells where it's needed most. Without adequate magnesium, even perfectly absorbed zinc can't do its job effectively. The third addition was vitamin D3. The majority of men over 60 are vitamin D deficient, and vitamin D deficiency directly impacts testosterone production and zinc utilization. It's like trying to start a fire with wet wood. Technically possible, but you're making the job much harder than it needs to be. 3 weeks into this protocol, David called me with an update that surprised even him. "Doc, I don't know what you did, but I woke up yesterday with morning wood for the first time in probably 2 years. And I've got energy I haven't felt since my 50s. My wife says I'm like a different person." By 6 weeks, David was reporting consistent improvements in energy, motivation, mental clarity, and sexual function. By 12 weeks, He told me it was like someone had turned the lights back on in his body. The transformation wasn't just physical. David's confidence had returned. His motivation to tackle projects around the house was back. His relationship with his wife had improved dramatically, not just intimately, but in every way. He felt like the man he'd always been, just with more years of wisdom and experience. But zinc, as powerful as it is, represents just 1/3 of the solution. The second pillar of masculine vitality restoration involves something that most men have never heard of, but that can have even more dramatic effects than zinc when used correctly. And unlike zinc, which takes several weeks to build up in your system, this second intervention can start working within hours. Some men report feeling a difference the very first day they try it. But before I reveal what this second pillar is, I need to address something that might be holding you back from taking action on any of this information. Here's something that might surprise you. The difference between feeling vital and feeling defeated can sometimes be measured in minutes, not months. While zinc works over weeks to rebuild your foundation, there's a second intervention that can start improving blood flow, energy, and sexual response in as little as 30 minutes. It's completely natural, has been studied extensively, and works so reliably that many men use it as their secret weapon for situations where they want to feel confident and capable. I'm talking about L-arginine, an amino acid that your body converts directly into nitric oxide, the molecule responsible for opening blood vessels and ensuring healthy circulation to every part of your body that matters for masculine vitality. But before you run to the nearest health food store, let me save you from making the same mistake that 90% of men make when they first learn about Not all L-arginine supplements work, and the ones that do work require very specific dosing and timing to deliver the results you're looking for. Let me tell you about James, a 59-year-old airline pilot who was facing mandatory retirement and wasn't sure how to handle the transition. James had always been a high performer, someone who thrived under pressure and prided himself on his physical and mental sharpness. But over the past year, he'd noticed what he described as performance anxiety in multiple areas of his life. "Doctor," he said during our first consultation, "I've been flying commercial jets for 35 years. I've handled emergencies, bad weather, difficult passengers, you name it. But lately, I feel anxious about situations that never used to bother me, and it's affecting my confidence in ways I don't want to discuss in detail, if you know what I mean." I knew exactly what he meant. James was experiencing what I call anticipatory performance decline, the vicious cycle where concern about physical performance creates mental stress, which makes physical performance even more difficult, which increases mental stress, and so on. James had tried the standard medical approach. His doctor had prescribed a low dose of Viagra, which worked mechanically, but left him feeling like he was cheating or depending on artificial enhancement. More importantly, it didn't address his broader concerns about energy, confidence, and overall vitality. When I explained L-arginine to James, his pilot's training kicked in. He wanted to understand exactly how it worked, what the safety profile looked like, and what results he could realistically expect. Here's what I told him. L-arginine is a semi-essential amino acid, which means your body can produce some of it, but not always enough for optimal function, especially as you age. When you consume L-arginine, your body converts it to nitric oxide through a well-understood biochemical pathway. Nitric oxide then signals the smooth muscles in your blood vessels to relax, allowing increased blood flow. This isn't just beneficial for sexual function. Improved circulation affects energy levels, mental clarity, exercise performance, and overall sense of vitality. The key is dosing and timing. Most L-arginine supplements contain 500 to 1,000 milligrams per serving, which is insufficient for noticeable effects. The research shows that effective doses start at 3,000 milligrams, with optimal benefits typically seen at 5,000 to 6,000 milligrams taken on an empty stomach. But here's the critical part that most men miss. L-arginine works best when combined with L-citrulline, another amino acid that actually increases arginine levels more effectively than taking arginine alone. It sounds counterintuitive, but citrulline converts to arginine in your kidneys and provides a more sustained release than arginine by itself. I put James on a specific protocol: 3,000 milligrams of Ella combined with 2,000 milligrams of Elsa. The results were immediate and dramatic. Within 30 minutes of his first dose, James reported feeling more alert, more confident, and more present than he had in months. When he tested the protocol before intimacy with his wife, the results exceeded his expectations in every way. Doc, he told me 2 weeks later, this isn't just about blood flow. It's like someone turned up the volume on everything. I feel more like myself. More confident, more capable, more alive. But James discovered something even more interesting over the following months. When he combined the L-arginine protocol with the zinc foundation we'd established, the effects were multiplicative, not just additive. The zinc was rebuilding his system from the ground up, while the L-arginine was providing immediate enhancement when he needed it most. This is where the science gets really interesting, and where most men miss the biggest opportunity for transformation. You see, L-arginine and zinc don't just work independently. They actually support and amplify each other's effects in ways that can turn good results into extraordinary results. Second CTA, if you're finding value in this information and you want to make sure other men can benefit from it too, take a moment to share this video with someone who might need to hear this message. Your recommendation could be the catalyst that helps another man reclaim his vitality and confidence. And if you're getting ready to take action on any of this, drop a comment below and let me know. Your story might inspire others who are still on the fence, but L-arginine, powerful as it is for immediate results, still represents just 2/3 of the complete solution. The third pillar is what ties everything together and creates what I call the masculine vitality multiplier effect. When all three pillars work in harmony, men don't just recover their previous level of function, they often surpass it. This third pillar involves something that most men do every day, but never realize they're doing it wrong. Something so simple that when you optimize it correctly, it can amplify every other positive change you make. What I'm about to share might sound too simple to be true, but it's backed by decades of research and represents the most overlooked aspect of masculine vitality restoration. It's something you do roughly 20,000 times per day. Something you've been doing since the moment you were born, yet something that 95% of men over 60 are doing in a way that actively undermines their energy, circulation, and sexual function. I'm talking about breathing. Not just any breathing, but a specific type of rhythmic, diaphragmatic breathing that directly stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, increases nitric oxide production, and optimizes the delivery of oxygen to the tissues that matter most for masculine vitality. Most men breathe from their chest, taking shallow, rapid breaths that keep their bodies in a constant state of low-level stress. This type of breathing restricts blood flow, increases cortisol production, and interferes with the very hormonal and circulatory processes that zinc and L-arginine are working to optimize. Let me introduce you to Frank, a 64-year-old former Marine who came to see me after his cardiologist cleared him for excellent cardiovascular health, but he still felt like he couldn't catch his breath during physical activity or intimate moments. Dr. Frank said, "I've been in good shape my whole life. I still work out 5 days a week. My heart is strong. My blood pressure is perfect. But I feel like I'm not getting enough oxygen when I need it most. It's affecting my stamina in every area of my life." When I watched Frank breathe during our consultation, the problem became immediately obvious. Despite his excellent physical condition, he was breathing like a man under stress, quick, shallow breaths from his upper chest, never fully engaging his diaphragm, never allowing his body to access the full power of proper oxygen. This is incredibly common among men who've spent decades in high-stress careers or who've developed the habit of chest breathing without realizing it. The irony is that this breathing pattern, which feels normal and automatic, actually prevents your body from accessing its full potential for energy, circulation, and performance. I taught Frank a specific breathing technique that I call the masculine vitality breath. It's based on research showing that certain breathing patterns can increase nitric oxide production by up to 300%, reduce cortisol levels, and activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch of your nervous system responsible for rest, recovery, and optimal sexual function. Here's the technique. Breathe in through your nose for 4 counts, allowing your belly to expand. Hold the breath for 4 counts. Exhale through your mouth for 6 counts, allowing your belly to contract completely. Rest for 2 counts. Repeat this cycle 10 times. The key is doing this technique 3 times per day. Once upon waking, once before any physical or intimate activity, and once before bed. Each session takes less than 5 minutes, but creates a compound effect that builds over time. Frank was skeptical but agreed to try it consistently for 2 weeks. "Doc," he said, "I've done a lot of things in my life that seem too simple to work, but this isn't costing me anything except time, so I'll give it a shot." Within 1 week, Frank noticed that his workouts felt easier, and he wasn't getting winded as quickly. Within 2 weeks, he reported that his energy levels throughout the day were noticeably higher. By the 4th week, he told me something that surprised even me. "Doctor, my wife and I had been struggling with intimacy for months, not because we didn't want to be close, but because I kept getting anxious about my performance, which made everything worse. Since I started this breathing thing, that anxiety's gone. I feel calm, confident, and present in a way I haven't felt in years." This is where the magic happens. When you combine proper breathing with the zinc foundation and the L-arginine enhancement, you create what I call the masculine vitality multiplier effect. Each intervention amplifies the others, creating results that are far greater than the sum of their parts. The zinc provides the raw materials your body needs for hormone production and cellular energy. The L-arginine provides immediate circulation enhancement when you need it most. The breathing technique optimizes your nervous system and maximizes the effectiveness of everything else. But here's what makes this combination truly powerful. It addresses masculine vitality from 3 completely different angles simultaneously. You're rebuilding your foundation, enhancing your performance capacity, and optimizing your body's ability to utilize both. Men who implement all 3 pillars consistently don't just recover their previous level of function. They often discover levels of energy, confidence, and vitality they haven't experienced in decades. They feel like upgraded versions of themselves. All the wisdom and experience of their years, combined with the physical vitality and confidence of much younger men. But there's one final piece of this puzzle that ties everything together, and it might be the most important part of all. Everything we've discussed today, the zinc foundation, the L-arginine enhancement, the breathing optimization, works best when implemented as a complete system. But I know that having information and successfully implementing it are 2 very different things. That's why I've developed what I call the Masculine Vitality Protocol, a step-by-step plan that takes the guesswork out of reclaiming your energy, confidence, and sexual vitality after 6. Here's your complete protocol. Week 1 to 2. Foundation building. Start with zinc bisglycinate, 30 milligrams daily, taken on an empty stomach with 400 milligrams magnesium glycinate and 200 mcg copper. ADD, 4000 IU vitamin D3. Begin the masculine vitality breathing technique twice daily, morning and evening. Week 3 to 4. Enhancement, integration. Continue the foundation protocol and add L-arginine plus L-citrulline 45 minutes before physical activity or intimacy. Increase breathing sessions to 3 times daily. Week 5 to 12. Optimization and mastery. All protocols continue. Fine-tune timing based on your personal response. Most men report significant improvements by week 6, with peak benefits typically achieved by week 10 to 12. The men who follow this protocol consistently experience something remarkable. They don't just feel better, they feel like themselves again. The confident, capable, vital man they've always been, just with more wisdom and experience. Final CTA. If this message has resonated with you, if you're ready to reclaim the vitality and confidence that belongs to you, then I want to hear from you. Comment below with the word ready if you're committed to implementing this protocol. Share this video with another man who deserves to know this information. And subscribe to Life After 65 because your journey back to vitality is just beginning. Remember, you are not broken. You are not too old. You have not missed your chance. Your most vital, confident, and powerful years can still be ahead of you. The only question is, are you ready to claim them?